record.
So we have to pretend like there's an audience listening.
We have to pretend, yeah, we should pretend there's an audience listening.
Okay. Did you press the red button?
The record button? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good. Okay, so we have to pretend that people are, an audience is watching.
Yep.
So we gotta act professional. So, welcome. Oh, you're the speaker. You have to do it.
I'm the host.
You're hosting. Yeah. If you're the host, well, I'll always be the guest, and you'll be the question asker, which by default makes you the host. Okay. So tell us why we're here. Sifu and Gibbons Teriyaki Tuesday talk.
Teriyaki Tuesday. All right. Well. Okay, we'll just jump right into it then. Thanks everybody for tuning in on our first podcast.
And Teriyaki Tuesday.
Teriyaki Tuesday. All right, so we're here today. We're joined by our first guest, Sifu Atalick. And why don't you tell us some of your credentials?
So credentials. So I am a certified master in praying mantis Kung Fu, 7-star praying mantis Kung Fu under Grandmaster Philip Chow, who is from Hong Kong originally, and he's been teaching in Canada for the past 50 years, I think. He's been teaching for 50 or 60 years. I don't remember offhand how long he's actually been in Canada teaching, but the majority of that time. Okay.
Very cool. And so we're this is really weird, people, just so you know. Okay.
It's first podcast.
This is our first podcast, and I am really terrible at being on camera.
So far, so great. So we can strip the audio and just use the audio portion of this.
Yeah.
And we'll tell Ms. Gibbons that we're not actually going to use the video.
Yeah, that'll
take pressure off. So let's just do the audio then. We'll strip this.
Okay.
We'll just use the audio. So let's go. Audio, go.
Audio.
No camera.
Okay. All right. Well, I wrote down some questions here. So, tell us about why you got into martial arts, how that got started.
So I was always the smallest kid in my class. Always, up until like I got into grade 7 or 8. I was always the smallest kid, and I got picked on. Quite a bit for being the smallest, and it just always kind of appealed to me because it was like, even with martial arts, even if you were smaller, it didn't matter so much because you can still protect yourself and still defend yourself. That's kind of how it got started, I guess.
Okay. And what age did you start martial arts?
I think I was about 8 or 9 years old when I first stepped foot into a karate class, and it was, I think, I was looking for activities. Well, I wasn't looking for anything. I was looking at staying home on Saturday morning and watching Spider-Man, the old-fashioned Spider-Man, instead of going out and doing things. But I was forced against my will to go and play hockey on Saturday morning, which I hated. And I finally convinced my parents I didn't want to do that. So we were looking for other activities to do year-round. And soccer was something I asked about, but because I was so small and skinny, my mom said she had this terror that because she watched kids in the park play soccer, and they were kicking around and kicking each other, and they would get like sometimes a kick in the shin, and she was worried that if I got kicked by accident, my leg would break in half. So she thought for some reason that karate would be a better fit, even though you're getting kicked more in karate. But her rationale was that, hey, it worked out great, but her rationale was that it'd be safer for me to do martial arts because she didn't want to see me get like kicked by accident in soccer because it's so skinny. She didn't want me to break in half. So martial arts was the thing that she let me do. So yeah, I was 9, and then she took me down to the rec center. Where was it? Port Weller Rec Center in St. Catharines, and then I did my first karate class there.
All right. And when did you start Mantis Kung Fu?
Mantis Kung Fu I started in, it was about 20 years ago. And it was a lot of self-study at that time because there was no praying mantis teachers around my area. The closest one was Toronto. So I had done research on some others in Canada. I went to visit one out west at one point and did a lot of learning from him, but a lot of it was just kind of through correspondence because, like I said, I couldn't get an in-person teacher. I started really studying praying mantis Kung Fu really heavy in 2006 under Grandmaster Chow. But so I'd kind of done it informally up until that point.
All right. And So why did you like praying mantis kung fu?
So praying mantis, going back to the theme that I had talked about, was being a smaller kid. There was always this learning how to defend yourself against someone larger, someone picking on you that's larger. Well, mantis was just like the shining example of that, because praying mantis kung fu is a small little insect that can defend itself against something much larger. So that part was very appealing to me. And then the other funny thing is,
yeah, there was something about a video game.
So yeah, the story about the video game is I used to go to, every summer we'd go to Marineland. It's, big for, if you're watching, Marineland, everyone knows what Marineland is. It's a big park, right? Big amusement park. But I always liked spending most of my time in the arcade, and at that time they had this game, Virtual Fighter 2, that was out. And I loved video games, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 and all that stuff growing up, because they were all martial arts related games. Well, this game had a mantis guy in it, and he was the youngest character in the game. And I found him to be most relatable because he was the youngest character, and he was having to, fight all these other older and bigger people. And his style was praying mantis kung fu, and I thought that was the coolest. And at that time, I must have been like 12 or 13 at that time. So after that, I was like, I got to learn that style. So from, age 12 on, I was obsessed with learning praying mantis kung fu, and of course, it wasn't until years and years later that I found a qualified teacher to do it. But in the meantime, I had still studied other forms of martial art just to keep going. Someone gave me advice at one point. I had some email correspondence with the master of kung fu that I somehow knew through the system I was training at the time. And I told him I really wanted to do praying mantis kung fu, but there was no teachers around, so what should I do? Should I just wait until I can travel far enough to find one? And he said, no, you do what you can, while you can, when you can. So don't wait to find the right style that you want. Train what you want, train what you can, because when you do finally meet that teacher to teach you what you want, your progress is going to go really, really fast, because you're going to have a good base and good experience. And that's exactly what happened. If I would have waited and done nothing until I found Grandmaster Chow, the teacher that I ended up starting with, if I would have waited and done nothing, well, I'd been a complete novice by the time I found him. It would have taken me much, much longer to master the system. But because I did as much as I could do with what I had, which is training other systems of martial arts for as long as I did, then when I finally found the right teacher, then the progress was just so much faster, right? So that's a point I want to bring up too, is that don't wait for the right, if you're thinking of doing martial arts, don't wait for the perfect whatever, because it never comes. Train what you can, while you can, when you can. Sorry. Next question.
Next question. All right. So I just thought of this question.
Good.
When you started kung fu versus now, what's the difference between what you thought it was going to be versus what it is?
Oh, wow.
Or is there a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Because everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but most people get into it. A lot of people get into it when they were kind of saw themselves as the David to the Goliath, right? And they were downtrodden, so they want to get like a power, an advantage over someone, so they can overcome an opponent. And a lot of that was, it was, the mentality was overcoming something else, overcoming a person, overcoming an enemy. And then so you want to have all these cool abilities, and you visualize that you'll be able to do all this cool stuff, and backflips and spinning kicks and all that stuff. And I mean, some of it's true, but the value is in realizing you don't have to overcome anyone other than yourself, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is quite a bit different. It's hard to get into the specifics of it, but especially with holistic kung fu, you learn. It doesn't sound as exciting if you're just starting. You're like, oh, I thought I was going to learn all these cool ninja assassin moves. Well, I mean, you kind of will, but that's not where the value is. The value is in how you learn to cultivate a life of having good strength, having good coordination, having focus, and being competent in so many different ways. That's kind of where the value is.
So this term holistic kung fu, this is in reference to how you see kung fu to be, is holistic in nature, or do you think it's lost that in kind of like mainstream martial arts, would you say?
I think a lot of it, yeah. I started using that term to re-emphasize what this kung fu business is supposed to be about, because a lot of it's been lost from from what it traditionally meant. So Kung Fu, the term Kung Fu means the skill that you acquire after time and sacrifice, right? And you put in a lot of time something, you develop this skill, and through any skill development, it's going to help you build character because you understand, putting hard work into something. So it doesn't have to apply just to martial art. But in Kung Fu specifically, we use that martial arts skill development to have a positive effect on other areas of our lives. But if we're not having a positive effect on other areas of lives, it's not good Kung Fu. So for example, if you can, you're the fastest at striking and kicking and flipping and all that stuff, but if you don't learn how to properly communicate, if you don't learn how to look someone in their eyes when you're talking, treat people with respect, you're not a good Kung Fu practitioner. You're not a good Kung Fu practitioner unless you have your values aligned with what you're trying to achieve, with your goals, right? So holistic Kung Fu means you're training not just the physical martial art, but you're also training mentally, you're training spiritually. And now there's specific measures for that. I don't just mean be spirituals and wear beads and buy crystals and light candles when you meditate, right? I mean, have a spiritual connection with things, with your creator, whoever that may be. But also have a good solid foundation on how you live your life. So like how you make your bed, how you pay your bills, how you deal with your finances, how you invest, how you cope with stress. All of those things should be effective in a positive way for holistic Kung Fu, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think I can relate to that. When I started Kung Fu, I thought it was just going to be a physical thing. And then quickly learned that that's not the way that you were teaching it. You were teaching more, the martial art was like the best quality martial art, right? It was like most effective for self-defense, but at the same time, the learning how to communicate, learning how to be like a person, as we say, right, is the responsibility of the teacher just as much as teaching the art. And I've heard that said now in many, schools of thought. If you're going to teach somebody discipline, right, it's irresponsible not to teach them how to also be a good member of society at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with Kung Fu, because you're giving people the capacity to potentially hurt someone, right? And especially with Mantis, to hurt them pretty badly.
Yeah, Mantis is very, how would you say?
Aggressive?
Yeah,
effective.
Yeah, you don't really hold back. Okay, so talking about Mantis is like extremely aggressive street fighting kind of style martial arts, nothing you would really use in competition. And at the same time, teaching how to live peacefully. So you're teaching kind of like the extremes. Yeah, and I guess that would seem paradoxical to some. But like the saying goes, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, right? Is it battle? Yeah, that's the thing. I think we get it, yeah. So, and that kind of plays into the kind of students that we accept in our school, right? Yeah, and it used to be more of an issue. So we used to have it where we would have to do a lot more screening for our school. So when people would come in because they just heard the name Kung Fu, they would come in and think they were going to be, doing all the physical martial art, which obviously they would do, but there's a lot more required of the student. We have to make sure that they're developing positive habits, they're learning compassion, they're learning good values to go along with that. So it used to be more we would have to weed people out if they were just coming in to look to fight. We would say, thank you very much for coming in. To be honest, this might not be a good fit for you because we're going to be working on a lot of things, a lot of character development that right now might not be important to you. So we would have to do that more often. Now that the school's been established and people kind of get that, we don't have to do so much of that because the community around us kind of has the understanding of what we focus on. So that's gotten a lot easier over the years. I've noticed that too, as the person that picks up the phone most of the time. Get less and less people just looking to fight, and if they are, they didn't come from our marketing. They just looked it up themselves, right? So they have their own preconceived notion of what martial arts should be teaching, And I found a lot of those people too, when they come in, a lot of times they would say, well, like, who are you? You don't have any business to teach people how to live. All you should be teaching is the punching, kicking. Which is so weird. It's like you're going to make a human weapon with no principles.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
It's like, at what point is that traditional Shaolin knowledge or something like that? That's what they think.
Yeah, a lot of times it does happen where people have to be reframed, because if their only exposure to Kung Fu was through like one movie that they saw, whatever it was, or one person that they talked to, you have to do a little bit of reframing, because they just don't know. A lot, and it actually depends a lot on when the movie came out, what movie it was that they saw, right? So like one of my mentors, Grandmaster Oliver, always says that he, back when he was younger and he was running a martial arts school and Karate Kid came out, it was like a fantastic time, because people would come in after watching the Karate Kid, and Miyagi would be like, okay, Daniel-san, we learned to fight so we don't have to fight, and and wash the car and all that, and paint the fence, and like that was all great. Like, he's learning lessons in discipline, right? So that was a great time. Now, like a decade later, Power Rangers came out, and then it was like totally different, because then all these kids were coming in wanting to like jump around and punch the putties and have them explode all over the place, and it was like a completely different thing if the parents were bringing them in at all. Because when the parent takes the kid to see Karate Kid on the main screen, it's like, yeah, okay, I want little Jimmy to be just like that. And then when they watch the kid watching Power Rangers and the kid's jumping all over the living room and breaking stuff, it's like, nope, you're not going into that, right? So it does depend a lot on the media that gets people to try it out. Depending on what the movie is, it will vary. The audience will vary quite a bit. So that's always been consistent over the years.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that too. With like the kind of people that come in to learn martial arts. Would you agree with me that the best students that we have, or not all of them, but some of the best students are the people that came in not looking for it even for themselves? They never thought they'd be doing martial arts before. Or maybe they wanted to, but were too scared to, or something like that, because the martial arts world can be very intimidating.
Yeah, that does happen quite a bit. And there's exceptions to that.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the majority of people that come in and do really well. And it's actually, and it's because they have less talent when they come in, they tend to be better at Kung Fu. Because they have less talent when they came in, and they couldn't kick above their waist, right? They couldn't touch their toes. They had to struggle through so much more to get to that same level of kicking above their head, right? Reaching their toes, doing hook kicks or whatever. They had to struggle so much more to get there. So because of that struggle, it means a lot more. Mm-hmm. So the more adversity one goes through in order to develop a skill, it would usually go that the character development is going to be stronger along the way. So they end up having a lot more resilience developed because they had to fight like hell to get there. Whereas when you have someone that comes in and they pick up everything in a second and everything's very natural for them, in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, as soon as that student hits some kind of adversity, like a hard test, and not a test like a test in class, I mean a test like getting here becomes hard because maybe they've got some family issues at home, right? Or maybe they've got a bad habit that's hard to kick and that's not congruent with the training or whatever it is. As soon as they get that adversity, then they drop out. Mm-hmm. Because it didn't really mean as much to them because they didn't have to fight so hard to get it. So yeah, a lot of our students that come in are like that. They didn't see themselves as a martial artist very that much. They didn't even think about it at all, or they were kind of hesitant about it and they wanted to try it out, because when they came in and saw the classes and people were genuinely friendly and supportive and not looking mean, they figured they'd try it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as natural ability, just say that people that have more natural inborn kind of ability, or for whatever, an advantage, it's almost a disadvantage in some ways.
It can be a disadvantage. right? So
if it's not balanced.
If it's not balanced, it's an interesting thing. It's like, who's to say? And I'm, you know, and so I'm actually, it's funny you brought this up because so I'm writing a book right now, right? You know this, and I haven't announced it.
What's
like,
it called again?
It's called Be Like Tea. Okay. So I'll give you the gist of the book because it's called Be Like Tea, and the example that I used early in the book, and the book is about holistic kung fu and how we use these lessons to. And I like tea. I'm a big fan of tea. My two favorite things are tea and kung fu. Okay, not in that order. Kung fu and then tea. They're interchangeable depending on the day and my mood. But so Be Like Tea. One of my mentors gave me this, you know, explained this to me, and I'm like, this is a perfect example of kung fu. Okay, so. He said that his grandma used to tell him the same water that boils the egg softens the carrot, right? Meaning that you have a set of adversities or circumstances in your life, okay? One person can take those circumstances, and because those circumstances that had a lot of difficulty in them, that person will use those circumstances to kind of be forged in that fire, and then they'll be pushed to become more than they are and struggle through this adversity and build something up, you know, like really power through it and become a stronger person because of it. Other people would have those same adversities, and again, I'm not passing any kind of judgment on anyone, I'm just talking about this idea here. Mm-hmm. Other people would have those same set of adversities and then use it to be like, no, it's too much, I got to give up, I can't do this, okay? It's the same water. Some will be softened and some will be hardened, right? And you don't really know. It's up to the person. It's up to their character.
Well, and also, you could have one person with really, let's say, easy circumstances.
That was my next point. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And two people born in the same, like, let's say, typically easy circumstances. One person uses it, right? Takes advantage of it, makes the most out of it, and another person is just, as a result, never learns to work, never learns to persevere, right? So I guess ultimately it's really up to what the person makes.
Yeah, I mean the circumstances will have a difference when you look back with hindsight, and the hindsight's always going to be 20/20. So you could always say, well, that's why they were successful because of that, or that's why they failed because of that, right? Mm. But at the time, you don't know. But those circumstances can mean different things to different people, right? But now, Be Like Tea is a little bit different now. Okay, so the second part of this, again, and if you want more details on this, you can read the book. It's probably coming out next month. But Be Like Tea means where you're not hardened like the egg or softened by the carrot, but you change the nature of the water, right? So tea isn't like either one of those things. Tea changes the nature of that water. It changes its properties. So in holistic kung fu, we're not only being affected by our circumstance, but we are trying to change our environment, right? And there's different ways to do that. We do have an effect on our environment. It's not, everything is not happening to us, right? If we learn to have an internal locus of control and take more responsibility, more accountability, we can affect change on our environment, right? We don't have to accept the rules as we see them. We can be changing the rules, right? And one of my favorite examples of this is Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru. Remember? Mm-hmm. Did I make you watch that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys, Captain Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru, and I only use this reference now because it was remade again in the Star Trek universe in the new movie where he takes the unbeatable scenario, the no-win scenario, and then he wins against the no-win scenario because he changes the rule of the game, right? So that's kind of like Be Like Tea.
So locus of control. I didn't know this until I looked it up.
Okay.
Locus means place.
Place, yeah.
Yeah, like location.
Yeah.
So in case people were wondering
okay.
what a locus is.
Not like
the
locust.
The first time I heard a locust. And I'm like, what?
Like a whole bunch of locusts being like, we're in control. Good job swarming, everyone. Keep swarming, we're in control. Yeah. Locust.
Yeah, it's just an internal. So internally, you're in control of yourself, not external. Yes, very good. Okay.
The visual with locusts, though, is pretty funny if you think about it that way. Okay, next question.
Next question. Okay, so on the docket today, well, at this time of year, usually we have November, December is our Black Sash goal setting month in our school, Black Belt goal setting, and talking about goal setting, and that's been definitely a
like stretched this year with the COVID times.
Goal setting. So let's
goal setting. What do you mean it's been stretched?
Well, I would say it's been tested.
Tested. Okay.
Right? Because this year we've had a pandemic. I'm sure nobody, when they, because in our school, right, we set a goal to black sash. It's 3 to 5 years, right?
Yep.
And we think the struggles are going to look like push-ups, and then all of a sudden nobody thought, oh, there'd be a pandemic.
It's funny because so when a student starts in our black belt or black sash program or leadership program, I usually have this talk with them, and I explain that. Okay, so going back first of all, I remember setting my goals in January, and I didn't anticipate this at all, right? But not doing too bad considering, right? Like we have our plans to build a new location. That's still in the works, yeah. Right? Yeah. I think I had the goal of writing the book this year too, and that was delayed, but still in the works. But anyway, so we've still managed to move forward, not at the pace we would have liked, but we still managed to keep moving forward anyway. But I always have this talk where the challenges in Kung Fu, you're going to be tested in Kung Fu, okay? On the way to Black Sash, the test is not the test like you think it is. Like, the test is pretty difficult, as our Black Sashes will tell you. The prep cycle, the months leading up to Black Sash test, is very difficult, and again, the Black Sashes will tell you that. And they'll also probably tell you there's more than that people don't think about. The test is not that last little part of time. The test is every day. Yeah. When you set the goal to when you finish, the test is every day, and the challenges are going to come at you, and they're going to come at you sideways. And I tell everyone that the challenges are going to come at you sideways. It's not going to be the amount of push-ups you can do. It's not going to be how many forms you can memorize. Those will all be there at the end, but the test is going to come at you sideways in a different way. And this year, holy crap, did they come at us sideways, right? Yeah. But you still have a choice, right? It's going to be very difficult. And although I don't take all the credit, I did say I warned you, but I didn't warn you to this degree. But the challenges definitely did come at us sideways this year.
Yeah, and so, well, I remember one thing you said to us when this all happened, like the staff members, like the instructors. You were saying, well, we could just, when they shut us down, you said, well, we can just go hibernate and do nothing. And all of us looked at each other, and it's like, well, no, that's not what we want to do. Like, we committed to teaching all these people. Like, we could have just gone and, collect serve and whatever.
Got jobs.
Just let the business shut down and say, well, it's too hard, and sorry, everybody. Like, we played it out. Like, I remember playing it out in my head. Like, am I going to quit and just say, well, I can't be an instructor anymore? I can't teach Kung Fu anymore because I can't do it the way that I want to do it. Like, it was a real crisis of identity. Yeah.
And you would have had a story.
Yeah, everyone would have understood.
You would have had a convincing story. So we talk about that a lot. You can either have the result or you can have the story, but you can't have both. And now we're not passing a negative judgment on anyone who chose the story, but the story that we would have had there was, well, we used to teach Kung Fu for a living, it used to be a lot of fun, and then the Rona hit. And if I would have told that story, people would have been like, oh, yeah, that's terrible. And everyone would have understood, and no one would have passed negative judgment if we had just done that. Yeah. Okay?
I mean, I think some people would still be upset.
No, they'd be upset, but everyone would be like, yeah, I understand. What can you expect, right? But that's what, again, on the way to Black Sash.
Well, I thought about this because I've heard people say, well, I was at this other place and I almost got my black belt, and then the school closed down, and so I couldn't get my black belt, or the instructor quit or left town or something, and so I couldn't finish. And I thought, well, that's horrible. I would never want that to happen to any of our students. Like, can you imagine, like, how many Black Sashes did we graduate this year? More than we've ever graduated in a
lot.
Year.
Yeah, we've had more Black Sashes this year than ever before.
Like almost 30 people get their black belt or Black Sash this year. That's like, that's a record.
That's kind of ironic. And in the time when you would think more people would drop off that goal, we've had more Black Sashes and black belts promoted this year. I didn't take time to reflect on that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So it would have been horrible for them to be ready to do it and able, and then the facility not be here.
Like, what a story to give a bunch of people. Like, oh, I almost got my Black Sash, and then our school closed down because they weren't willing to adapt to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we could have done that.
That would really suck. But again, like people would have been upset, but they would have understood.
They would have understood. And everybody else would have understood their story.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And that's the same thing with getting your black belt or your black sash. Dropping through on that goal, and especially during now, everyone would understand. It would be like, well, yeah, oh yeah, that makes sense. It was a horrible situation. You couldn't get your black belt because this and that and all that stuff happened. It was horrible. And you could be okay with that. Or you can get the result despite that, and that's totally up to you, right? And it's not a judgment, because there's always going to be that, that's what courage is that continuing on, even when everyone would understand your reasoning for not continuing, right? So.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So when we teach goal setting, right? What are some of the things we use in our school to teach goal setting?
What are some of the things that are school? Well, the belts are a major part of goal setting. So you start with a long-term goal, right? Your 3, 4, 5-year goal is your black belt or your black sash. Okay, so you put that up there. Okay, that's your goal. Okay, well, once you have that, and at the time when you're setting that goal, it's like, well, how am I ever going to do that? It's like a castle in the sky. Well, you start by having that dream putting up there. Once you have it up in the sky, then you go to work on building your ladder underneath it. But you've got to start with that visual of, this is where I'm going to be. And then then you work on the logistics of step by step. So that's why we have a belt system. The belt system, and people sometimes come in with this weird
hang up.
All these weird hang-ups on the belts. Like, well, if you're a green belt, should you be able to, spar this person, beat up that person, and it's kind of foreign to us at this point. So it's like, what?
Yeah.
Or people ask, are like, well, wait a minute, isn't purple belt supposed to be over orange belt or whatever? And it's because they learned it from some other school, and it's like, what? Like, what? Yeah, but why is that? That's not really important. All right. I mean, it is for certain schools, but the schools are different. Some schools do this belt system, some do that, and it really is not that important. What's important is you've got your black belt up here, and you've got your steps. Okay. Whatever color you want to color those steps is really, it will vary person to person. So that's why people sometimes they have funny framing about that. But for our school, what the belt system is, it's those sub-goals in order to get to your black belt. And once we teach this to a student, they start thinking, okay, well, how does this apply to other things? You have a goal. You've got a goal of, I don't know, whatever it is. You set a goal of doing something that's going to take, 5 years. You start with the goal, and then you put your steps in between, right? You put your tasks in between. So in our belt system, those are the colored belts. And they make it manageable, right? They give you momentum. So if you just set a black belt and then hope for it and sit there, you might get it. You're probably going to give up along the way, but if you have these sub-goals on the way, it's going to give you feedback on how you're doing, which is important. You'd have to have a kind of objective feedback on your progress, right? But it also builds up your momentum too to keep you going. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
Kinda?
that was one of my trains
so
of thought.
goal setting. So
yeah, so why set a goal? Why not just live life day to day?
I can't even answer that really, because I can't fathom life without a goal. So I'm almost, my brain doesn't.
Is that a masculine thing?
No, it's my brain no longer comprehends how to not set a goal and then push yourself to a higher level, right? So, okay, yeah. So I can't. It's hard to fathom like a life without goals, but basically, if you're with Kung Fu, you're always in a state of constant, never-ending improvement, and you can't do that if you don't have something to aim for, right? And the goal setting isn't like, for me, like life is a process of learning, teaching, and improving. And so you can experience and you can learn things and how you relate to other people. If you're not in a path where you're constantly improving, I don't know.
You're either green and growing or ripe and rotting.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal setting isn't about the achieving a thing. So your goal is to work hard, save money, and buy a new car. Well, okay, that's the thing. That's not really like the point of the goal. The point of the goal is, if you set your goals properly, the point of the goal is the activity along the way that you have to do in order to get that goal is going to affect who you become. So you want to make sure that you're setting goals that are not for you, but who you want to be. Right? So if you're setting goals, you gotta be careful not to set goals of things that are gonna happen anyway. Right? Like, you set a goal of black belt because, like, well, oh, I don't think I could ever do that. Well, that's why you set the goal, because of who you're gonna become along the way. Right? You don't set goals for, like, I don't know, I can't think of a really good example, but don't set a goal for something that you know you're gonna default into, because then you're not putting pressure on yourself to become a better version of yourself than you are right now.
So, what's happening? So we use the metaphor of the board breaking for focusing on a goal, right? So when you have your goal is to break the board.
Yeah, so board breaking is, and when I was a younger, because I was I was a kung fu guy, right? Now I had met with and trained with other martial artists and of other arts, taekwondo and karate and jiu-jitsu, and so in kung fu, a lot of times because we like Bruce Lee, and we like Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee was like, boards don't hit back, so you're like, hee, Bruce Lee made fun of the board breaking. So for a lot of my younger career, I didn't believe in board breaking, because I like, well, you shouldn't be using this to prove how tough you are. You don't want to, so I would think that it's like, yeah, someone broke a board, it doesn't mean they can fight, right? Well, and then after a while I started to learn, okay, so that board breaking isn't about that. I mean, it does show you have the physical skill to throw enough power into something to knock someone out, but other than that, it doesn't really show your martial arts effectiveness. Board breaking is about the mental process that you have to go through to break through barriers, and that's why this is so important. Board breaking is a lot of fun too, because you'll see kids that when they do board breaking, it's so much fun to do with the kids, because you'll see like one kid who's little guy like this high, and he'll like just give it and he'll plow right to the board. And then you'll see a kid that's like maybe even a year or two older, and they're taller and they're meatier, and they can't get to the same board, and you're like, well, what? No, they should be able to do this. It's not possible that you can't, because this guy's like way shorter than you, smaller than you, skinnier than you, less body mass. He plowed through it no problem, and you can't break through it. Now, you don't tell the kid that, you encourage them and all this stuff, but it's funny to watch. And as adults, we do the same thing with different stuff, right? But with kids, you get to have this bird's eye view of it so you understand it better. And now what you have to do is, as an adult, you've got to look at this and then see how you do the exact same thing. But you see a smaller kid plow through it and a bigger kid not be able to do it. And it's very obvious that it's like, you tell them, look, we know you can do this. It's completely possible. You've just got to believe in yourself, as cliche as that sounds, right? But that's what happens, is they're focused on the board and they're not focusing through the board. So they see it and they're kind of punching at it and they're focused through it. Well, the little guy, you tell the little guy, and it's not always a little person, I'm just saying for the sake of this example, don't think of the board, think through the board. Put your hand on the other side of it. Don't stop your hand here, plow through it, right? And once they get it, oh, okay, boom, then they plow right through it. And it's the same with our goals, right? So when you focus on a goal and you get close, you tend to hit that ceiling psychologically, okay? And this is what I mean with adults. We do this because we focus on the goal and the obstacle right in front of us into achieving that goal. And we see it as a ceiling. Well, if we don't think on the other side of that goal, we keep hitting that ceiling. So what this means is, it's important when you set a goal, you don't just have one goal and that's it, and say, once I achieve this goal, things are going to be great. Once I have it, I will just be great. I'll just sit back and I'll crack a beer and I'll relax for the rest of my life. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? Because you'll never get there. It just doesn't work. So if you're thinking, well, once I have that, I'll just have it made. Well, no, you're not going to have it made. You're going to have another challenge beyond that. And if you don't have another challenge, another goal beyond that, you're going to be stuck at that ceiling for the rest of your life, right? So once you get close to that goal, maybe 70, 80% of the way, you've got to set another goal. Because if you don't, you're going to keep on hitting that ceiling. But if you set a higher goal when you get close, you're going to blast through that without even thinking about it. Okay? It's a very interesting thing. But you think, well, no, I want to be totally finished this thing before I move on. you probably won't move on. You probably won't get through it. You've got to think through the board. So board breaking, that's another reason why board breaking is such an awesome example of goal setting, because it's not just about that goal, it's about the next goal. And there's always got to be a next goal if you're going to keep on learning and growing and improving.
Yeah, you can almost see, like, I've taught like probably like almost 1,000 kids how to break a board, just with birthday parties and that. And see, when they do it, it's like their self-image just shifts like that. Like when they get through it, like you see some kids are so shy they won't talk to anyone. Then you show them that they can break this thing in half, and then all of a sudden they're talking to people, right? Because they did something impossible to them, right? They went beyond what they thought they were.
And they light up. And
they became something that they didn't think that they could become. And they did that through visualization, right? So they didn't know necessarily how it would happen, but they did it. And then that's kind of like what you were saying, like it's about what you become when you set the goal, right? It's not about actual goal, right? Who cares if you broke a board?
Yeah, well, and it's cool. It's something to hang. It's something to hang on your wall. So you've got the thing, you hang it on your wall, but really it's about who you become on the way. You transform. So that's the, I don't know, for me that's the best part of teaching to kids, is just watching their self-image change, because they can't hide it like adults. Adults. Yeah, cool. Okay.
They say everything they're feeling at all times. Okay, so we were talking about we've noticed like some people, well, this is just a common thing that's always happening. People have struggles in the winter, and there's a pandemic. There's always a reason to give up on their goals of going to Black Sash, and no one comes in here and they have like a stupid reason. It's always like a really good reason why they need to stop training. And some people come at it with almost this like attitude of like, it's so horrible, but what can you do, kind of thing. Like it's very like scripted. Like, does somebody outside tell you to say that? Like,
yeah, what can you do?
What can you do?
I don't. Like, well, yeah, and I don't know if you.
But that's like how society is. I don't know, shaped. It's like, you just, when it's hard, you just stop, right? You're right. That society is shaped that way. When it's hard, you give up and you just. And you say, well, what can you do?
What can you do? What can you do? Well, you can do what you set out to do, is what you can do, right? For one, that's going to sound harsh to some, but it's like we say, right? Like.
Well, okay. The thing is, it sounds harsh, but nobody's out there making you get a Black Sash. Like nobody made you set that goal.
Yeah.
You set that goal.
Yeah.
So if you're going back on it, it's like, that's your decision. People may judge you or whatever, but who cares, right? Ultimately, you're the one that has to live with that decision. You're the one that has to play that out.
Yeah.
And decide what you would have been if you kept going, and if you didn't. And if you did, then you get to see what that's like. And if you don't, then you never know, right? So I used to be really afraid of like judging people that quit, but like I don't, it's not like a judgment thing anymore. It's just, this is the way I live. Like, I'm never going to stop martial arts, and you can't even fathom not setting goals.
I don't think
I can't fathom it either, so we're kind of weird. But
the point I want to make is not an average thing, and like we say that all the time. We say, how long does it take an average person to get a black belt, right, or a Black Sash? And the answer is, the average person does not get a Black Sash, right? It's not, the average thing to do is, well, it's difficult, so let's give up and try something else, right?
Yeah. So it's not up to us. Right? What we think about it doesn't matter.
Well, we can. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't need to validate nor judge an excuse. If it is what it is, like if you say this is the thing that's gonna stop your path, I don't know. Like, only you can have the courage to go on and get the result, right? Or accept the reason why you didn't. That's got to be a personal thing, and a lot of people will just say, I understand totally. People will understand your story. They'll understand your reasoning, right? Yeah. It's up to you whether you're going to have the courage to go, through your goal despite that, or stop towards your goal because of that. That's an individual decision.
Yeah. So the only advice, what advice would you give to someone that feels like they want to quit? Like, as Or it could, because nobody wants to quit because it's the actual thing is hard. I don't think that's really what it is. It's usually always like Kung Fu is hard. No one quits because Kung Fu is hard. You know, they quit because they're going through a slump, right? They can't.
A lot of it is a reaction. When things get difficult, we tend to just kind of just shut in, and we want to just get like everything
to stop yeah.
and just everything off our plate.
And we've had people actually say, I just need everything to stop.
I need everything to stop, yeah. And unfortunately, like,
which it's like funny because it's like, again, nobody's making you.
no one's making you do this, but you know, unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. I think you know, if you embrace the struggles it's throwing at you, you're going to become a lot of, you know, of a stronger person because of it. But it's hard to do. You can't force anyone to do that because it's got to be a personal decision. So, you know, so don't get me wrong. I don't fault anyone for making that. I don't need to, you know, to judge it. But anyone that makes the decision despite those challenges, I admire that person's courage and recognize it for what it is, right? Advice I would say is that make sure, first of all, you're in the right room, right? Make sure you've got people that are going to support you and that have congruent goals. Because you want to use a little bit of peer pressure to your advantage, right? So if you're in a room where, you know, you've got, say, 5 other people and they're all working on their black sash, they're going to be talking about what's with that group. We're going to talk about what's exciting for them. They're going to talk about, you know, I had a really hard week last week, and I was really tired to get here, but I'm here, and now I feel awesome. And they're going to go, that's awesome, good for you, congratulations. And they're going to reinforce that behavior. And now, if everyone does that a little bit, there's peer pressure for everyone to get into class and have that same attitude. That peer pressure can be a good thing, right? It can be a bad thing. It can also be a good thing, depending on the group and depending on the group's focus, all right? So if the group's focus is, hey, we all got here, we all showed up, even though we all had a hard day at work or at school, but we decided this is what we committed to do, and we just brush it off. When you get here, you leave your baggage to the door, and now we're going to have a lot of fun. And everyone's like, yeah, that's an awesome attitude. That's the peer pressure of that group. So that's the activity you're likely to do, or the behavior you're likely to engage in, because that's where you get emotional support, okay? Now, if you're with a bunch of people that just want to, you know, get together and, I don't know, do some kind of negative habit, just play video games or just drink or whatever it is, and you're talking about this decision to keep going in Kung Fu, well, they're probably going to say, yeah, that's stupid, don't do it. Just play video games with us and here, pour some booze.
Who joins Kung Fu at 30 years old?
Yeah, exactly. So, and then you're more likely to be swayed by that group, right? So that's just simple positioning. Put yourself in a position with people with similar goals that are going to support you, right? And I don't mean like, you know, shun people away that aren't congruent with your goals. I just mean put a little more focus with the people that are congruent with those goals, because they're going to support you and they're going to reinforce that behavior for you. And that pull, that social proof pull to be like our peers, is very strong, whether negative or positive. So you may as well position yourself in a group where it's going to be a positive, right?
So here's a question.
Yeah.
Since we're running out of time here. Who have been some of your influences, your peers that you surround yourself with on purpose to get some of the gravy that falls off of them?
My dad's one, because we had, you know, growing up was, you know, like anyone else's childhood, it's full of ups and downs, and I've had the privilege of watching him struggle through a lot of things. So, you know, anytime I'm not feeling positive, he gives me a call and picks me back up, and then I do the same thing. I do the same thing for him. But, you know, even though he's got a lot more experience, I've seen him go through that struggle while I was growing up, and I can relate to that. And we, you know, and despite everything he's gone through, he keeps pushing forward no matter what. So that was very motivating to me. So now, you know, he's in part of that circle. I always want to strive to be like him and just keep going.
And then I have other peers in our industry as well. So like other school owners, some are local, some are all over the country, some, you know, or in the States, all over North America. So we're in a group, and we all pull each other along too, because we're all focused on the same goals. So that's I think that's a few. Think of anyone else? Do you mean peers, or you mean more like mentors?
Mentors. Who's your biggest influence? So aside from your dad as one, is there any other big influences?
Yeah, so my teacher, Grandmaster Chow, is my Kung Fu teacher, and then my teaching teacher, Grandmaster Jeff Smith, who who really inspires me to manage better, to teach better, to train black sashes, and to train staff members better. And then Grandmaster Oliver, he inspires me to kind of be a leader for our school, right? To be the visionary and kind of look at always at the next step, the next level. So those are kind of, as far as Kung Fu and the school, those are kind of the three big ones I have.
Okay. So where do you think you would be if you didn't have these influences around you? How would it be different if you just didn't have these people?
I can't even imagine. I would probably be working as a barista, maybe at Starbucks, maybe something a little bit nicer.
Well, you are a barista here.
Yeah, I do. I still make a mean cup of coffee. No, I don't know. I would maybe be in, I don't know where I would be. I can't imagine. I do lay this out in the book. I kind of lay out the steps that I took with these three mentors and everything. That explains a little more thoroughly. But I can't even imagine. Like having a good mentor is such a huge part of your development, right? It's an integral.
Okay. And has there ever been a time where you wanted, I know you've wanted to quit before, right? What makes you keep going? What makes you keep going when you want to quit?
The next day. I have days, yeah, everyone has days where it's like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And the last year has been, a lot of that. And if I've learned to just get to the next day. If I just, let's just wake up tomorrow and see how it goes. And usually by the next day, then things turn around pretty quickly. If I just, but you've got to, it's okay to let yourself have a crappy day or two, right? I find that the one thing I've learned this year is that to allow myself to do that and just kind of give yourself, pull out of your mind for a second, look up above and just be like, look to yourself. You're having a bad day, that's okay, right? And you have a longer point of view, so tomorrow's going to be better, and next week's going to be much better, right? So you don't have to panic when the day is particularly crappy. So it's like, I'm having a bad day, yeah, that doesn't mean I need to quit what I'm doing and throw in the towel and, go and work, do something else entirely. You don't have to do that. Just accept that you're having a bad day. And if you do that, the pressure's off, and then the next day is going to be a lot better. So that would be the thing that kind of helps, is just, have the bad day today, that's fine, just get to tomorrow.
Yeah, that's something that you've helped teach me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was a born drama queen. Oh, today's the worst day, it's the end of the world. And just you tuck your chin and lean in.
Tuck your chin and lean in.
Yeah, and realize it's a roller coaster. And this is the part where it goes down, and it'll go up again, and down again, and up again, and down again, and up again. And just decide if you want to be on the roller coaster or not. And I don't know, that's, for me, when I look back and think of all the times where it's like, oh, it's been hard. I think, well, this is just what happens right before you go up again.
Yeah, exactly.
So this COVID thing is a really big down. But it's gonna have a really big up after.
You start to recognize that this is when you step out.
It's gonna be so fun.
Yeah, when you step out and kind of look at the way things are going with the bird's eye view and a longer time perspective, you start to see, okay, so we're down, no problem. It's not gonna end. It's gonna go down and go up and go in.
You said.
What's that?
It goes up and it goes.
Exactly. It's gonna go up. It's gonna go down. So as crappy as it might be at the time, it's gonna go up, and it's just especially with Kung Fu. Training's hard right now, and then it's going to get a lot easier, then it's going to get harder, it's going to get easier. Yeah. It's a matter of, like Ms. Gibbons said, do you want to be on the ride? Because you know, our students right now that are going through this in maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, when they have their black sash, they're going to look back and they're going to be like, I'm really, really glad I stayed on that ride, man. It had ups and downs, but if I would have just got off entirely, yeah, that would have been, you know, I was at a down note when I jumped off, but I totally missed that upshot and the down shot and the upshot. I missed all of that. I missed the journey because I just got off, right? So it's definitely, yeah, that's been this year. It's been a great year to set that black sash goal for a lot of people, and we're really proud of all of our black sashes.
If you can set your black sash goal or earn your black sash during a pandemic, you can do anything.
Yeah. So, and that's the cool thing is that our students, like our leadership students that have got their black belt, black sash, we know that they're going to be fantastic, whatever they want to be, whether they want to be 4th degree black sashes or 6th degree black sashes, masters, whatever they want to be, they've got it now because they've already went through this. Like that's the, you know, it's probably as turbulent as it's going to get.
It just shows you what you can be made of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, that was fun. Put your comments in below and see if you liked our first podcast, non-podcast.
Teriyaki Tuesday.
Teriyaki Tuesday.
That's, not actually sponsored by Michinoku.
But Michinoku does make a fantastic teriyaki.
Yeah, salmon teriyaki lunch special, man.
But not just on Tuesday.
No, you can get it any day. We just do it on
Tuesday because
they're not open Sunday and Monday, so you go 2 days without sushi, you really want it on Tuesday.
And because the alliteration, Teriyaki Tuesday, sounds better. That too. If you guys aren't current students and you want to check out our program and see how it works in person, we'll probably put a link below this, or you can just visit our website at niagaracungfu.com. If you're not in the area and you want to train with us remotely, check out holistickungfu.net. I'll put that in as well for our members that are not in Niagara but all over the place that still want to train with us. You guys can check it out and we'll give you a free 2-week trial for our classes, either in person or our virtual online classes. Okay? And with that, if we're lucky, we will see you next Tuesday. All right? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys.